Three mere mortals discover their ability to create entire universes with their minds alone. Upon discovering their abilities, these three, gods if you will, join forces to create the Dark and Stormy Nights, a supercharged team of creatives with the aim of helping artists and writers around the world while combating the forces of boredom and mundanity. They are the Dark and Stormy Nights.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dark and Stormy Nights. This is Loki.
And this is Tyr.
And Tyr has a fun chapter for you this week. Do we need to preface or anything?
No, I mean, I've stuck to our, plan for the most part. The only thing is, like I was telling you before, is I had some trouble getting it started this week. And I don't know if it's just because there's so much going on in the world
sure.
or just stress or whatever. But, like, the fight between Lee and Eliot just wasn't coming to me. So I kind of abbreviated that in the beginning. If you want to go back and kind of build that out, I'm more than happy to do that. And I figured, if nothing else, it would be better for you to help me with this than it would be for me to just throw crap in there that I wasn't feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I focused more on the Rowan side and like everything that she was going through. And I kind of put some questions in there about her. And like I tried to give her character some more depth.
Okay.
To where that is definitely going to leave the reader questioning who she is and where her loyalties lie and everything.
Sure.
But I definitely focused on her more than Lee and Eliot, and I am sure you're probably going to want to build that out a little bit, and we can absolutely do that.
Okay. And don't forget, you can go to r/Dark and Stormy Nights to contribute to the story. So I will, when the same time this episode airs, I will post it into the Reddit page, and you guys can add your opinions as well.
On where to go with those two? That's a good idea. Yeah, because I could really use some help with this.
You want to jump into it?
Sure. Do you want me to break into like a couple of pieces?
That's up to you, whatever feels comfortable.
Well, I can probably break it up. Give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. Sorry. Now I scrolled and I lost my place. Okay.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. All right. Rowan slipped out the door, leaving the bickering behind her. Eliot was a fast learner, and she had no doubt he could handle himself against Lee. He just needed a little confidence. She made her way through the empty lobby, but just before she reached the door, Nigel thwarted her escape. Heading out already? Rowan turned to face the sorcerer, pasting a sweet smile on her face. I figured I should give them some time alone to work things out. Nigel hummed thoughtfully and nodded. A wise choice. The silence hung in the air for a moment, and she started to turn for the door again. Where's Raina tonight? I was hoping to discuss something with her. I'm not sure. She gave me a night off, so I assume she had something going on. A date, maybe? One perfectly manicured eyebrow rose on Nigel's forehead, and the staff masquerading as a coffee mug twitched in his hand. Though far from powerful, Rowan had no problem seeing past the illusion to the immaculate man underneath. A day off in the middle of the case? That's not like her. She shifted on her feet but kept a smile on her face. Oh, well, maybe she's working then. I'm not really sure. I had some friends come into town and she gave me the night off so I could spend some time with them. Which I was just heading out to do? Of course. I apologize for holding you up. Enjoy your night. Rowan waved over her shoulder and slipped out into the night. The breeze picked up as she made her way back past the parking lot and into the tree line. Tipping her face up to the moonlight, she pulled the tie from her hair and let her long blonde hair dance in the breeze. The earthy scent surrounded her, reminding her of home, and she filled her lungs as though it could take her back. But she knew that was nothing more than wishful thinking. Rowan trudged over to the huge sewer intake and murmured a few words in a familiar language. She felt the barrier respond and stepped through, following the path until she came to a junction with a service panel. She once again whispered the words needed to gain entrance, and the panel opened to reveal metal utility steps. Her boots hit the metal platform, and she immediately began the long trip down, passing a demon in his human suit along the way. When the ground grew near, Rowan hopped over the side, skipping the last few flights and landing deftly on her feet. The bustle of the magic market was nothing more than background noise in the distance, a hub of activity at all hours of the day, but that wasn't where she was heading. The selling of information was lucrative business, but for her purposes, a blatant transaction wouldn't do. Her situation called for subtlety and an environment that welcomed a more open exchange. The sizable, brown, remarkably uninteresting building came into view just as the magic grated against her. The effect wasn't dangerous, nor was it pleasant. Its only purpose was to deliver a message. No humans allowed. Rowan ignored the spell and made her way to the threshold, brushing a palm over the barrier as she stepped inside. The Magic Maiden was a peculiar place, where the no humans rule meant that creatures of all kinds were free to release their glamours and be themselves. Popular among the younger generation simply for its ability to keep up with popular menu items rather than the old traditional meads and grogs that their parents had consumed for centuries. Sure, they still served some old traditionals, but in new trendy ways. Rowan approached the counter, nodding to the tree sprite behind the register. "Can I get a pumpkin spice skinny chai latte with a shot of mermaid tears?" The tree-like creature placed the order and plucked a mug from the shelf with its twiggy fingers. Rowan glanced around the room as he crafted her drink, turning back just in time to see the shot of mermaid tears add a teal-green shimmer to the beverage before disappearing beneath a mound of whipped cream, a dash of cinnamon, and fairy dust. Rowan dropped the money on the counter and snatched up her drink, wandering over to the poetry stage, where an exuberant tooth fairy was preaching about the oppressive thumb of the combine. Her expressive cries bordered more on a political speech than poetry, but the group nodded along and gave a more enthusiastic applause than usual when her time came to a close. When the noise settled, Rowan sidled up to a satyr she'd come to know as a regular. "What was up with that speech?" Rowan asked casually, as the next act began to set up. The satyr looked away from the pixie he'd been making eyes with and shrugged. Probably just a bad collection day. I heard the humans are starting to get wary of selling their body parts to the Fae." His pixie friend giggled. "Oh, stop, you know that's a myth. The humans agreed to that almost a century ago. They don't even remember anything about the deal." No, what she was saying was true. I heard the sorcerers raised a bunch of elf children from the dead and then had their haunters slaughter them. The witch in front of them then turned around, shaking her head. "No, it wasn't the hunters that killed them. The sorcerers trapped them inside one of their states and unleashed the home's defenses on them." The pixie shook her head. "So terrible. Who could do something like that?" Rowan didn't bother to lower her voice. "Actually, it wasn't the sorcerers that raised them. They wanted them to stay buried." The satyr tipped his head in confusion. "Why?" She smiled. "Now you're asking the right questions." Using the group chat for the magic community and several profiles on the private Fae social media platform, Rowan released the messages she'd preset before excusing herself to find the tooth fairy that had rejoined the crowd. Several others had surrounded the small woman, demanding answers. "I'm telling you, I saw some of them with my own eyes," she insisted. "Little Fae children, long dead, brought back. I even went to the huntsman to find out what was going on, and they lied. They're covering it up. We need to know why they would do something like this. We need to demand answers." "Where did all these children come from?" a unicorn shifter asked just as the notifications started coming through. Pieces of information circled the room until the picture started to come together. A Madge near the fairy nervously chewed her lip. Could there have been another reason why they released the flu? Maybe it was a spell that backfired. Even if all those kids died because they screwed up, does it make it any better? The fairy demanded. "And they still covered it up," a young witch added, glaring at her phone. "The kids, the witch, what else have they done that we don't know about?" "It was a long time ago," a werebadger pointed out. "And if any one of us screwed up that badly, what would the Combine do to us? But because they're in charge, they just get away with it? Why?" "Are you so sure it was an accident?" Rowan asked. "Think about it. Sorcerers are powerful, but so are some elves. A large number of changelings taking over the human population could be a threat to their power." Murmurs of agreement rumbled through the crowd. "Well, there's not really any elves here to test that theory," someone in the crowd argued. "Because of them," the tooth fairy huffed. "But what you're really saying is, why do we care what happened to the elves?" But elves and fairies aren't so different. What if their next quarrel is with me? The badger snorted. I don't think they're worried about the fairies taking over. Before the woman could attack, Rowan cut in again. What about the wolves? Or the werebears? They're powerful in their own right. What happens when the sorcerers decide a pack's gotten too big and has become a threat? They divide the pack, he conceded. And if you refuse? What then? Who put them in charge of your packs? She could see it in his eyes the moment the point hit home. It was elves and witches this time, the witch piped up, seizing the opportunity. But what's keeping them from coming for any of us next? Who's to say they haven't already? Their secrets have only begun to unbury themselves. That's the other question. Who's doing this? Who brought the children back, the unicorn asked. Rowan shrugged. Does it matter? Whoever it is an ally. They're uncovering their oppression. But what can we do? They're too powerful. Rowan slipped to the back of the crowd while they argued over the correct way to demand answers and change, leaving her mug on the table. She slipped back out the door and made her way up to the huntsman. Do you want me to hold off there, or do you want me to just go all the way through?
That's okay, breaking point. I liked it. It felt like it felt like that revolutionary. Many great revolutions in history were started in a bar, you know, and it is that kind of talk that got it going. It is this questioning. It's this this anger, you know. Why did they get to make the calls? Why did they, you know, who put them in charge, or, you know,
right,
what have you? And it felt like that. I think that was good. I think that was, well, it like just the way, you know, like Hamilton, in that one part of Hamilton where they're talking in the bar and it's starting to get going.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
It had that same, you know, kind of feel, of course, among supernatural things.
Right.
So, no, I like that. It's, you know, it's cool. I've always enjoyed that imagery, and I've never had the opportunity myself to put it into a story. So, you know, that was enjoyable.
Right, and I kind of, I figured like fairies and elves were a similar enough creature that, you know, it would be a fairy who was taking their side and, you know, and trying to figure out what happened. They're her kin, you know, and what's going on. But then, like, you know, some questioning it. Well, do we care? This was so long ago, and, you know, it's not like there's any elves here or whatever, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, there's kind of that, like, that exchange of, is this as big a deal as you're making it? And then the resounding, like, yeah, because what if you're next? You know, like, that indifference. And then, no, this is a big deal. What happens to one could happen to all, you know?
And I like the tooth agreement or whatever that they've long forgotten.
Selling the
I
body
feel
parts.
like somewhere there is the Tooth Treaty of 1702 or something like that.
Well, I looked it up, and it literally was, like, almost 100 years ago that the Tooth Fairy, like, started
Was
being
it?
a
Okay, so it
thing.
might be like the Tooth Treaty of 1891 or something like that, you know?
It actually came from a meme that I had seen somewhere or something, or like a Tumblr post maybe, where somebody was like, oh, the Tooth Fairy is fey propaganda. And I was like, that's excellent.
So, yeah, no, that's all interesting flavor. So I liked all that. And then did you say there's a were unicorn?
Yes. A were
And what's the badger
unicorn.
thing? Is that a were as well?
Were badger, yeah.
Okay. So wares are a big part of the community, it seems.
Well, I wasn't sure if the unicorn is truly a were or if it's just a unicorn.
Well, you said unicorn shifter.
Yeah, but I mean, truly, she could just be a unicorn.
Right.
standing
It
there
could be
because
just some of their magic or whatever.
With it, yeah, exactly. So within this bar, basically they can be themselves. There's no glamours because there's no humans allowed, and so literally it could just be a unicorn standing there talking to them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, it occurred to me that something like demons and stuff may just possess magic to look like other things. It doesn't make them a shifter or a were or anything like that.
Right.
But that they can change forms to, well, at the very least, survive. You know.
Right.
So
yeah, I labeled it as a shifter, but technically I can just take shifter out of there. I don't know. Like, I didn't call her a were. I don't know.
So yeah, I'm not sure, like how
that would work.
how
Let's
that
just
would
take out
work,
shifter.
like a unicorn in its human form or something like
But
that.
like I said, she doesn't even have to be.
Like, because
human
how would you
form.
know it's a unicorn otherwise, unless it was in unicorn form?
Yeah, nope, she's just a unicorn now. Well, I mean, that's why I kind of went with shifter, is because, like,
It's in this bar, and
no, just because, I don't know.
maybe they keep the horn when they change into human form.
Maybe.
know?
Or they look different. You never know.
So
So, yeah, there's that. I don't know. The beginning. Did you want to add anything in there with Lee?
No, I think it's fine. Like I said, I don't think we need to sit and watch it. We know the turmoil's happening. You know, I mean, I have a bad habit of giving a bigger example than is necessary, but it doesn't mean you have to. You know, so
Yeah.
I might have thrown some bickering in there, but it might have been wholly unnecessary to do so.
Yeah, there's a little bickering when she gets back to the huntsman. I didn't focus the chapter on that. I was struggling with it
Okay.
because it's a little out of Eliot's normal personality.
Sure.
You know, and so I think I was struggling to grasp attitude Eliot. You know.
Right. Okay. All right. Why don't we come back after a break and finish this chapter?
Sounds good.
Loki, what is best in life?
To crush your word count goals, to have them edited for you, and to hear the Dark and Stormy Nights podcast on Podbean, Google Play Music, and iTunes.
That is good.
And we're back. Okay, so we get the exciting conclusion of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait to hear where it goes.
All right. Jump back in.
Yeah.
Okay. So leaving her mug on the table, she slipped back out the door and made her way back up to the huntsman. Nigel was once again behind the desk when she made her way in. Did your plans fall through? She smiled. No, we met up for coffee. I thought I'd sit in and see how Eliot's training is going. We're supposed to grab food later. Ah, well, the building is still standing, so Lee must be controlling his temper. Temper. She shrugged. I think Eliot may surprise him. I think you're right about that, Nigel agreed as he disappeared into the back. Rowan slipped into the large training room and took a seat against the wall. The tensions between Lee and Eliot hadn't made any progress in the time she was gone. She watched Eliot struggle to keep up with Lee in some basic hand-to-hand moves he was attempting to teach him. And while Lee was surprisingly encouraging at times, Eliot's frustration kept him from accepting the olive branch for what it was. Look, kid, keep working at it. You'll get it. It's got to be second nature. We'll get in some training time every day, Lee offered. Eliot huffed and snatched up a water bottle. Yeah, great, he snapped before draining the bottle. Lee sighed and spared a side-eye for Rowan before heading to the practice targets. Let's get some shooting in before we call it a day. Fine, Eliot agreed, easily accepting the gun that Lee held out to him. Lee set up the group of targets in varying heights and angles, and then moved to stand behind Eliot. All right, remember the safety rules we went over. It's already loaded. All you gotta do is aim, hold it steady, and pull the trigger. Rowan sat up straighter and held her breath as Eliot lifted the gun. The room had magic that dampened the sounds, but the sharp crack of multiple shots in rapid succession still made her blink. When the sound stopped, the room stilled. Lee's jaw hung open, and a quick glance confirmed that Eliot had hit every target with incredible accuracy. Holy shit, kid, you've been holding out. Eliot set the gun down on the table and headed for the door. Yeah, I'm heading out. Eliot, Lee called after him. He turned and faced his mentor with none of the enthusiasm that Lee was used to seeing. Good job today, kid. Eliot nodded in response and turned to leave again, pausing by the door to offer a hand to Rowan. Not a kid, Lee, he said as the door dropped shut behind him. After a shower, Eliot rejoined Rowan in the lobby. Nigel was nowhere to be seen, but it was late, and Eliot assumed that even sorcerers slept. Ready? He asked her as she met him by the door. So ready. I think I could eat a whole pizza by myself. Eliot laughed. This I gotta see. Sorry I kept you waiting. She shrugged, offering him a wide smile that made her green eyes sparkle. No worries. I'm glad I got to see you kick some ass in there. Eliot felt his cheeks heat, and he turned away, pushing the door open and pulling her out into the night where his blushing would be less obvious. He felt a pang of disappointment when she dropped his hand, but it was immediately quashed when she slipped her arm around him and pressed into his side. It was the perfect moment, until they turned the corner and ran into some vandals. Eliot tensed the second they saw the two teens spray painting on the side of the building. The closer message read, "Justice for Anna." The teens were still working on a second that said, "End the Combine." Rowan tried to keep walking, but Eliot was planted at the scene of the crime. "Hey," he yelled, half expecting them to take off once they were caught. Instead, they spared a glance his way and then went back to work. "Leave them be," Rowan urged, as she once again tried to keep moving. Eliot's eyes widened. "What do you mean? They're vandalizing the huntsman." Shouts from behind them had him spinning towards the street in time to see more people painting messages. Had moved in to paint messages on the building and street. He started to head their way, but Rowan kept a hold on his hand. He spun to face her. "They're destroying things," he exclaimed. "It's just paint, Eliot. They're upset, and rightfully so. You saw what happened to those kids and the ghost. Imagine if those victims were human. Wouldn't you be upset? Wouldn't you want answers?" Eliot started to respond, only to realize she was right. Of course he'd be upset. He was upset without them being human. But was this the way to handle it? The crash of glass shattering had him once again spinning to see a magic user shattering the spelled streetlights. The creatures below morphed into their true forms before his eyes. The witch moved to the next light right in front of them and began her spell again. A boy with green hair came skidding to a halt in front of her, placing his hands over hers. "Whoa, whoa," he shook his head emphatically. "Bad idea. Taking on the sorcerers is one thing. You do not want to be exposed to the humans. Have you ever met a human?" The kid shuddered. "They kill everything. Giraffes even. Elephants. Truly evil species. They'd execute us with their gun collections before they even figured out what we are. Leave the lights. Go set up the super glue glitter bombs by the entrance." The witch recoiled at her friend's description of the vile giraffe-killing species and quickly moved on to the entrance. Rowan tugged on his hand again, pulling his attention away once more. He reluctantly followed her towards the back of the building. He supposed she was right. They did have every right to be angry, and what was a little paint compared to the loss of so many lives? "Light it," one of the teens yelled from the back of the building. The popping of fireworks echoed in the night, blazing a trail straight for the back of the building, only to bounce off the building's protections and be thrown back into the parking lot. The boys ducked behind a red Celica just as the ball of light flew through the open window. Eliot glanced over to see Rowan wide-eyed with a hand over her mouth until she broke into a fit of giggles. "Oh my God, that's Rick's car." "What are you laughing at? It's going to catch fire." Rowan rolled her eyes. "Rick's a jerk, but who doesn't put a fire ward on their car? He can't be that dumb." No sooner had the words escaped her lips than the fireworks' final explosion rocked the parking lot, lighting up the little Celica in flames. Her jaw dropped. "Okay, he is that dumb." "We cannot leave that," Eliot insisted. She scanned the lot and then grabbed a blue-haired girl, directing her to the car. "Can you put this out?" The girl raised a brow but lifted her arms over the car. The air began to swirl until the water separated out. She manipulated the air until she had a floating pool to work with, and then she directed it through the open window to snuff out the flames. The girl slipped away, and Rowan and Eliot eyed the damage. Curls of smoke escaped the blackened window of the destroyed car. "Right, so we should go," Rowan finally decided. Eliot once again took a look around the angry supernaturals that had come to make their discontent known. "Eliot, if they don't speak out, if they don't make it known that they won't tolerate being oppressed, being killed, then what's to stop the sorcerers from killing at will? What else holds them accountable if not the people that they rule?" He sighed, torn between a sense of duty to the hunters and the knowledge that she was right. "There's no bounty here, Eliot. This isn't our job," she reminded him. With one last glance around, Eliot let Rowan lead the way. As much as it felt like his job to protect the huntsman, this was a fight they'd earned, and he wouldn't be the one to stand in the way. That's the end.
That was good.
Thank you.
It felt like you had a feel for, the oppressed. You had a feel for what it's like to be them.
It's hard to not understand right now.
So, well, you would think that, but then there are so many who just don't get it. So, maybe if the Fae just obeyed the law, the hunters wouldn't kill them.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't ever make the point that he was like, well, they should be following the sorcerer's orders.
Right.
It was always like this sense of duty he had to the huntsman. It wasn't that he sided with the sorcerers.
That's because Eliot's not an asshole.
Right. Yeah, no, it was just a sense of loyalty that he, but in the end, I don't think it was wrong for him to walk away,
Right.
While Rowan's intentions are muddy, I still think that, Eliot won't be upset at this choice in the end.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, even after he discovers her and everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that wasn't. She didn't lie to him here.
Right, exactly.
You know, so
She might have had a little bit more in the game than he realized,
right.
but no, nothing she said was fake. Nothing she said was wrong. So, so yeah, I mean, I wasn't unhappy with the way that whole uprising played out. But like I said, there wasn't a lot of Lee and Eliot in there.
Yeah.
And what was there is just a little bit of, they're not on the same page right now.
Well, yeah, and Lee doesn't have to dominate the story. I mean, Lee
Mhm.
isn't technically Elliot's the main character, even though Lee is, you know, a big chunk of the story or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
The other thing that I didn't really do is I wasn't sure what kind of lead up we needed going into the next phase.
yeah,
I know we talked about the witches.
yeah, we were talking about doing a jump here.
Mhm.
So you know, we've been following Elliot and Lee almost exclusively
We have.
till now. Then you did Rowan for this one, so Rowan broke away from the Elliot and Lee thing. I thought that we might just cut over to the witches entirely.
I mean, truly, the witches ties in with what you're seeing here. We're starting to see the communities fight against the Combine for their wrongful leading. You know,
right.
their mistakes, even if they're of the past. So we're talking about the next phase of the Bodak's plan is to bring back witches that were killed in false trials or whatnot. And we thought that maybe those witches would connect to, was it Anna? I wasn't even sure I got the right name. The witch, the non-magical witch, the wife who was in the asylum, the ghost.
we can write that story. It doesn't.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, we talked about how she was from a witch line, and we thought that maybe the witches that the Combine killed were her kid.
Yeah, so the story idea that we kicked around was that Anna was committed, and maybe her family came to, you know, let her out or avenge her or something
or
like that.
or maybe like a generation or two later, they found out what happened to her and came for revenge.
Right, and they were put down.
And yeah, the response was a witch trial or something like that. So yet another, you know, cover-up mistake that the Combine made. And so, like, truly, like, if that gets exposed, that's just going to feed into this uprising even more. So I think that we can probably follow through and keep playing with this, you know?
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, but from here, you didn't necessarily have to say anything up because I think we can do a complete
Shift over.
cut, you know, and just go
You
over
could probably even jump back in time,
so
you know, to the witch trials.
it's not a bad idea.
And start there. I don't know.
So, but yeah, we'll be able to talk about that on the next episode.
Yeah, so I was just worried about any lead up, but if you don't think it's necessary, then we're good.
Yeah, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Do you got anything going on your Twitter or with your books or anything?
Nothing new. I still have that free prequel to an upcoming series up. I'm currently working on the third and final book in the Justice series.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, if anybody's looking for a civil uprising story, that one's going to be coming out. Like, fun little theme there. And then otherwise, no, I'll have more books coming out probably later this year.
Cool. Like I said, go follow us at r/Dark and Stormy Nights on Reddit. We also have a Facebook group, The Dark and Stormy Nights, of course with a K.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you guys are already following us on Twitter at the Dark Stormy K1. It's just at the Dark Stormy K1 on Twitter. So go check all that out. Try to, you know, follow us, subscribe, review, comment, whatever you want. So we'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Bye.